Hello, everyone. The other day I started watching, this is not probably a couple weeks ago, but I started watching a show called Con on ABC. At that time there had been about 3 or 4 episodes, and the shows are about great con artists in our recent American history. And one of the stories that they just recently put out there was about the TV evangelist Jim Bakker and his wife Tammy Faye. I'm sure there's probably a few of us probably remember those days. They were a big thing in the news. And it was interesting. It was mostly about Jim Bakker. They were popular during their era was like 1974 through 1987 roughly. Maybe we knew about them only because they were in the news a lot when they got in trouble with the law about fraudulence and hypocrisy. I probably only knew about them once they were in trouble with the law. I suppose the story was fairly accurate about Jim Bakker and Tammy Faye. I don't know any differently. Jim Bakker later got out of prison in 2003 and he got back on TV again selling, which is what is really, selling is what he's really good at. And the reason that I bring this up and bring this to you is that in the story, they talked about those Christians that watched him and thought that the world is coming to an end. I mean, can you imagine? And, the way they talked about him, just a bunch of nutballs. And then here we are 35 plus years ago and we're still here, And so it just made people that think about those things that just, look down on them because they're so superior, And then we see these stories on TV. I mean, almost all the stories about terrorism or, the world's coming to an end. I mean, it's just ridiculously old. None of them are accurate, but that's what comes out of Hollywood and there's books and things like that. And then we look at the news and we see the deterioration of our society and the rest of the world from every aspect. We see all these folks on TV come off as so much smarter than those Christians in what they do. Just recently the news. I mean, you could go on in the news about running out of iodine pills because the threat of nuclear war and bunkers, the elite bunkers that are being built for the rich. Sometimes you might just shut the TV off and stop listening to them, or you hear and take it and brush it off because they don't really know any better. The evangelist John O'Quinn had an opinion about these folks on TV and radio and how they are the false prophets in this age, and he goes into why he believed that to be true, which he makes some good points, but there's still other kinds of false prophets, but he was pretty big at one time about the news media being the false prophets because they're telling so many people all these lies. And I thought that's an interesting point. Going from all that and leading you into what this sermon is about, and it's about this list. It's about a list that I came up with recently because when you look at where we're at and try to picture how this is going to happen, there's so many things that have to happen before it's time to go. And so there's a group of us guys that fast fairly regularly, and so I put this list together and I texted it to them and asked their opinion, and I got a few responses back, so I made some changes. Then eventually I got the courage up to toss it over there to Dr. Teal and see what he thought about it, and he didn't like it. because it's not perfect sequence, you know. It's like, well, you know, no, but that's not, you know, it's not about being perfect. It's just, you know, what do you think, you know? And I thought I saw the opportunity to make a sermon or a sermonette. Turns out split sermon out of that. So, and I think it's pretty interesting because it's a great opportunity to discuss this with other people. And someone from another group was telling me that the tribulation is Great Tribulation is about a year away, and he has one factor that he's basing it on. And I'm like, well, you know, there's a lot more things than that has to happen. But I didn't want us to get to it. He didn't want to hear anything I had to say, because he's upper level. So I was like, okay. So I thought, well, maybe, you know, if we ever get back in that conversation, I could just say, you know, like, look at this list I got you here, and I fire it off to you too. You take a look at it and see what you think. But that hasn't really happened. But I think it's pretty interesting because we're a lot farther along than anybody else, any of the other groups think that we are. And there's some that just like the first seal, I mean, that other group that I came from, they used to teach that we were in the beginning of sorrows, and now they're saying, well, when the first seal opens. And so that's been about 10 years ago when they were in agreement that we were in the beginning of sorrows, and now they're waiting for the first seal to open. So I thought that's interesting. And some of the people that are in there that I know, that I've talked to, they're just confused. And so it's a good opportunity to educate, because I'm telling you folks, we know stuff that the other guys don't know. And because of Dr. Teal, he's on top of all this. So let me see what I got here. This list that I worked on is about where we are today in eschatological terms. That eschatology, that used to be a term I used to love that, you know, back in the Protestant days, you know. That I don't know, Teresa's smiling over there. That's a kind of a 90s term or something, isn't it? But you don't hear that in Church of God circles, eschatology, you know. But so anyway, we're supposed to watch. Mark 13:30 says, 13:37, and according to YouGov America, I guess that's a .com, nearly 3 in 10 people, about 29%, U.S. adults think it's likely that there will be an apocalyptic disaster in their lifetime. So it's not just us. You can be the average Joe, and you know something's wrong. Everybody, I mean, you're just not watching the news if you don't think something's not right. So I started this list, as it says, a couple of months ago. I don't know if it's been that long now, I'll look at that. But anyway, that's what I got here. It's been recent. Just to see, it's a good opportunity to kind of spread, I guess you say, spread the gospel in a different way. And it has about 25 numerical items on it, and it's vague in a lot of ways. Just to make it short, it's something just text it. I sent it to Teresa and James and Chad. Who else? I think Terry's got it. And so I want to run through that list with you, and then I'm going to break it down. And really, I mean, it's an opportunity to point people to Cogwriter. It's kind of how this came into being a split sermon. So let's see what I have. Well, okay, so there's, I've got this list. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to go back to reading this because I get to saying things, then I'll lose my spot. I think the first 4 seals could be in order. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. But also they're throwing the earthquake, famines, and troubles. And when you have the first four seals, that's basically the beginning of sorrows. And there's a parallel when you're looking at Revelation, some in Revelation 6, and then you look at Matthew 24. Those numbers line up almost exactly alike. They're real close. And of course, Dr. Teal teaches that we're possibly at the opening of the third seal. It's not saying it's definite, but it looks like it. And let's see here. I guess after the four seals open, the rest of the items on the list of events are just things to watch out for. And as I said, the sequential order cannot be verified. Only expect them to happen before the Great Tribulation. And since we're about 5 years away, or roughly thereabouts, it's time to take notice. And got there, why didn't God put them in perfect sequential order? And I can think of a few reasons, mainly for our safety and protection. For one reason, the point of the list is to wake people up about where we are in these last days, that being basically from Revelation 6:5, if you will. It seems to me in talking with folks from other groups outside of ours that they don't know where we are in all of this. I mean, I'm telling you, that people I talk to, even back in the past group, they're just wandering around. They just don't know. Yes, we're in the early stage at the end, and the countdown hasn't begun yet, speaking of Daniel 9:27a, but also since other folks like us don't know what we know, it's an easy way to point them to the source of information, which is cogwriter.com, specifically if they want to. What do we know that they don't? For instance, a lot of them, believe it or not, don't even know that it's Germany or Europe that's going to get us, the USA. And I was just shocked. These are church people been in longer than I have. Go way back in the worldwide. They don't even know it's Germany. Come on. You know, I guess they're all worried about Russia and China, and it's just amazing if you get to talking to people. Something else, I'm not trying to be your watchman on the wall. That's Dr. Teal's job. I'm just one of his students. Now I'm still learning things. I could go talk to a person in the Church of God outside of our group and get all puffed up about how smart I am about these things in comparison to them, but then I can go talk to Steve or Carlos, for example, and I might need to change some things or vice versa. But then I go talk to Dr. Teal about him, and I'm still damp and wet behind the ears, as that saying goes. While doing this list and trying to turn it into a sermon, Dr. Teal had some problems with it. Number one being that it is not in perfect sequential order. So I'll say that probably a couple times, and it's on the text. So the number 2 item. Okay, I feel like if I present this list with the original intent and it works, more people will watch, as Mark 13:37 says, excuse me, and tune into cogwriter.com. I think that this will be a good thing. I'm going to run down the list and give you time to write it down if you want to, and then I'm going to start it over to break these items down in more detail and not expecting to get through all 25 items explained as thoroughly as should or could be explained. And since I may not be able to cover it all, if you don't know what some of these items are about, I can only suggest you go to Cogwriter to learn more about them. So you have the first seal, second seal, third seal open. That's 1, 2, 3. And then the fourth seal coming. And I have human death toll rises exponentially. And then earthquakes, troubles, Mark 13:8. And in between there on my text I have red heifers, but it's not biblically accurate. It's just, it looks like red heifers are going to be a big thing because of how the Jews are, what they're doing about this. So it's not a biblical requirement, but I got it in there just to kind of make it interesting. And I think it is interesting. You know, there's gaps there, and there's a little explanation about the red heifers. Number 6 says tax imposed, Daniel 11:20. And then there's number 7, Europe's reorganization. Number 1, Revelation 12. And I don't know how many people are watching on Copyright some of these Twitter videos where these Europeans are marching because they know they're going to be short on food, they're going to be short on fuel to stay warm. And these streets are filled up with people and they're marching. And it just, until I saw that, I was, well, how's this reorganization one going to happen? And now I can see how this is going to happen. Now it all just makes sense. But, you know, I don't really tap into Twitter. I don't have a Twitter account. Other people are seeing it, but a lot of people still aren't because it's not in the news. You know, not in the regular news. Number 8, the prince rises, ... watch for him, Daniel 11:21. Number 9, Middle East war. Number 10, Damascus leveled, Isaiah 17:1. Number 11, King of the South. That's all I got. Number 12, false prophet. These are just things that are going to start popping up. We're going to see these people. 13, peace deal, Daniel 9:27a. Asterisk, 3.5 years before Daniel 11:23. Number 14, Europe's second reorganization, Daniel 11:23. Of course, that's probably 17, Revelation 17, 12, 18, something like that. 12. 15, false prophet anoints king of the north, Revelation 13. 16th item, Elijah to come, Matthew 17:11, Malachi 4:5. I think Malachi 4:5 and 6. 17, Daniel 11:28, persecution of the Philadelphians may be 1335 days. 18, and I'm going to run back through this lesson, break down a little bit more, and burn up a little time here. 18, gather together, Zephaniah 2:1. I don't think the other, I've not seen any of the groups know about Zephaniah 2:1. They gather together, they don't know about it. Other group knows about 1335 days of Daniel 12:12. What is that going to tell you? What about it? You know, they don't put that with Daniel 9:27. They don't back out. They don't back out. They don't back out the count. 19, Daniel 11, ships from Chittim, maybe 1335 days, Daniel 12:12. Number 20, end of sacrifices, Daniel 11:31, 1290 days. Church 21, church flees to place of safety, Revelation 12:14, Zephaniah 2 and 3. 22, church members turn on each other, Daniel 11:32. Number 23, Amos 8:11-12 happens after Daniel 11:33. 24, the two witnesses 3 days before Great Tribulation starts. And then 25, Matthew 24:21, which is Great Tribulation, Habakkuk 2:6-8, Daniel 11:39. And then at the end of this list on the text, I have this comment. And it says, this list is not in perfect sequential order. The opening of the seals happens during the beginning of sorrows, and once they're opened, they stay opened and intensify worse until Christ returns. So a lot of people have a problem with the seals being opened up at this stage, say 3, because they look around, they can still go to the grocery store and get groceries. Yeah, but it's inflation, you know, it's just not a big deal. They don't realize that they stay open all the way to till Christ returns, and it just intensifies and they get worse. People die. So even though it may not seem too bad now, so I'm going to go back to what I have on this list. I'll try to keep my comments down. The opening of the seals happens during the beginning of sorrows, and once they are open, they stay open and intensify worse until Christ returns. So even though it may not seem too bad now, they will continue to worsen along with the rest of these other events. Also, this list is not finished. All of this happens in the next 5 years. So, back to the first seal. It was open, white horse rider, Revelation 6, 1 to 2. First thing I'm going to suggest is to read the Cartwriter article entitled The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. That's just, you just got to go do that. And that'll cover these 4 seals. And a lot of people don't understand them as identified as the seals, so think of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and other people it may ring a bell. Certainly if you're in Church of God, you should know what they are. Other groups should know about that. Number 5, earthquakes and troubles. And of course, we say the 4th seal up here, the pale horse rider, that has not opened yet. But all the things that these scientists and gain of function and things like that's going on without our real, our wishes, could come up with another COVID or some of these other things that Dr. Teal has brought up to watch out for. Number 5 is earthquakes and troubles. Mark 13:8. All of this is sorrows. The hurricane that just happened in Florida. Those could be considered troubles. So I don't know how Florida is going to fully recover, like Fort Myers, places like that. I mean, that place just got really messed up. Number 6, tax imposed, Daniel 11:20. The Cartwriter article, plug in tax deal in the search box. He's got an article that just came out about a month or so ago. Could we be close to the fulfillment of Daniel 11:20, imposition of taxes? I know there's talk there talking about a world tax, but I don't think this is the one that's about. But there's several ideas. But anyway, number 7, Europe's reorganization. Number 1. All these marches, I think that this democratic or so-called democratic government that they've got in place is going to get overthrown because they're just messing everything up, the sanctions and against Russia, and not watching what they're doing to the people, and no fuel and no food, and they're going to get overthrown. Number 8, the prince rises. Watch for him, Daniel 11:21. Plug in the prince rises in Cartwriter search block. Number 9, Middle East war. Since I've been a kid, the Middle East war has been in the news, right? And you wonder, well, what's the big deal? There's always a war. Yeah, well, it leads to a real big one. And it leads to everything's about the Middle East and Jerusalem. So it's important. And with the Middle East war, Damascus gets leveled, and then there's going to be a peace deal, and all that develops and has to do with the beginning of the Great Tribulation. Number 11, I got King of the South here. It's an article in Cartwriter, is the future King of the South rising up. With the lack of food being produced out of Ukraine that was providing a lot of food, that's very possible that it's going to rise up the Mahdi, or the King of the South, that's described in Daniel 11. Then number 12 is the false prophet. And then 13, the peace deal, Daniel 9:27a. If you, who doesn't know about this if you're in our group? But there's other people that could be pointed to Copywriter. And there's plenty on that. 14, Europe's second reorganization, Daniel 11:23. This is where the 10 kings in Europe give their power to the beast. These are big things. These are big events. And we're going to see them. 15, false prophets anoints the king of the north, or the beast. Revelation 13. So, plenty on that. And we've got the Elijah to come. And I know a lot of us, sometimes I've asked Dr. Teal if he thinks it's him. He says, well, the Malachi 4, 5, and 6, there's a problem there with that. So I always thought, as much as he writes, how could it not be him starting off things? But he's not sure about that. So just like he said the other day, he's not sure if he's one of the two witnesses either. So, you know, he's not trying to act like a big deal. He doesn't even know. So I can't say he is if he doesn't even know. 17, Daniel 11:28, persecution of the Philadelphians. Maybe 1335 days. There's plenty on that. Just plug in the Copywriter. There's plenty about that. Excuse me. Says here, this is part of Daniel 11:28. While returning to his land with great riches, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant, so he shall do damage and return to his own land. This is where the beast starts getting really frustrated with folks like us. Number 18, gather together is Zephaniah 2:1. Gather yourselves together, O one desirable nation. Plug that one in. Before the what's it called? The what? Decree. The decree. Yeah, I was going to ask him today what he thought that was. Church flees a place of safety. 21. I skipped 20. And the sacrifices. Plug that in. There's so much that we need to be up to speed on. There's always something that can find that's missing in here that can get plugged in that can really be helpful. 21, church flees the place of safety. Revelation 12:14. Zephaniah 2:2-3. Before the decree is issued, there it is, or the day passes like chaff, before the Lord's fierce anger comes upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger comes upon you. Seek the Lord, all you meek of the earth who have upheld his justice, seek righteousness and humility. It may be that you will be hidden in the day of the Lord's anger. All right, 22, church members turn on each other, Daniel 11:32. There's stuff on that. Those who do wickedly against the covenant is Daniel 11:32. Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery, but the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. And there's somewhere during all this, the beast gets some in the church to turn on their brethren. Maybe they are disgruntled, maybe they are not truly committed. During this time, the northern king will apparently corrupt the corruptible and continue to be responsible for persecuting the people of God. Look at persecutions from church and state, and who is the king of the north. Those are two articles in Copywriter. I can just recommend. There's probably others. Number 23, Amos 8:11-12 happens after Daniel 11:33. And those the people who understand shall instruct many. Yet for many days they shall fall by a sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. And when they fall, they shall be aided with little help, and many shall join them with them by intrigue. All right, so a lot of us should know about Amos 8:11, but others not necessarily so. And then 24, two witnesses, 3 days before Great Tribulation starts again. Just plug in the two witnesses in Copywriter, read up on that. Number 25, Matthew 24, 21, which is the Great Tribulation. Habakkuk 2, 6 through 8, Daniel 11, 39. We all probably know these scriptures and what they're about. So on this list, okay, there are a lot of things coming at us, and it's going to be wild. You can at least be knowledgeable about some of the many things that are coming and not be caught off guard, and know what you need to know, and maybe get yourself physically, spiritually, and psychologically prepared for them. I think it's important to be ready for these things that are coming. If you can, pass it on to your family, your friends, you know. It's the one chance you may have. Think about those opportunities you can talk to them about if you get this list and have it handy. I cannot imagine going forward without having the guidance of Dr. Teal on cogwriter.com tool. Can you? This is Lewis Rubin with the Continuing Church of God.